Hi, hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar organized by Docsity in partnership with St. John's University. I'm Alessandra, nice to meet you all, and I'll be your host for today's event on behalf of Docsity. And I see here that the first people are already starting to join in, so welcome everyone. We're gonna wait a few minutes before starting to allow everyone to connect. And in the meantime, feel free to say hi on our chat here on Zoom. First, I want to thank everyone for joining us and our panelists for being here with us today. I want to introduce you all to Dr. Paul Walker, faculty expert and chair of the Department of Enterprise Risk Management, and Amber Steiger, who is going to talk us through the programs offered at St. John's University. So to know a little bit more about Professor Walker, he is arguably the world leader in enterprise risk management and has worked with leading companies such as Microsoft, Walmart, Harley-Davidson, and several others. He holds a Ph.D. from the University of Colorado Boulder and a BBA from the University of Texas, Arlington. Dr. Walker has professional work experience in banking, in public accounting, as an auditing and fraud expert witness, and as a consultant. Additionally, Dr. Walker co-developed one of the first courses on enterprise risk management and has done ERM training for executives and boards around the world. This training includes helping boards develop risk oversight practices, benchmarking ERM practices, advising organizations on ERM process development, and identifying black swans and unknown risks. He has also written extensively on risk and ERM, including the books Improving Board Risk Oversights Through Best Practices, Making Enterprise Risk Management Pay Off, and Enterprise Risk Management, Pulling It All Together. He has also co-authored several articles on ERM, including Is Your Board Ready for ERM? The Strategic Advantage of ERM, Managing Risk, an enterprise-wide approach, A Road to ERM, and ERM and the Strategy Risk-Focused Organization. Dr. Walker also served as a visiting fellow at the London School of Economics Centre for the Analysis of Risk and was a consultant to COSO on the original Enterprise Risk Management Framework. Additionally, Dr. Walker was selected as a 2011 Deloitte CFO Scholar and also served on COSO's ERM Advisory Council. Together with him, we're going to explore today's theme, which is strategic risk analysis in uncertain times. And we're going to learn more about enterprise risk management. We're going to discover the benefits of pursuing a degree at St. John's University by attending his presentation and getting a taste of how the lessons are taught there. And also, I would like to remind you that you'll be able to ask all the questions you want about the topic of the masterclass as well as on the programs offered at St. John's University. So talking about that, I would like to remind you that after the presentation, we will have a Q&A session. And I would suggest to not be shy and just type all of your questions in the Q&A section here on Zoom. So we'll be happy to go through them at the end of the webinar. Also, for those of you who are interested in receiving a certificate of attendance by Docsity for the free masterclass, stay tuned because we will be posting the link to get the certificate at the end of the session. So I would say that we have some people that have joined us here, so welcome you all. I think they were able to start now, so I'm going to leave the floor to Professor Walker, and we're going to see each other in a few minutes. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Alessandra. So I've got my video on now. I'm going to turn it off when I start with the PowerPoint. So if you're kind of wondering what I'm doing, I'm going to do that. We had a little bit of lag a few moments ago. So you heard right. The name is Paul Walker, Fast and Furious. Those are great movies, but I'm not a race car driver. I don't have Vin Diesel here to present with me or The Rock. I wish I did. That would be cool, right? But I am a professor in New York. Some of you who may understand U.S. accents have already figured out I'm not a New Yorker. I'm not, but I work here. We have St. John's University right here in Manhattan. We also have a Queens campus. We have a campus in Rome, a campus in Paris. And I lead the enterprise risk management degree and a Center for Excellence in Enterprise Risk Management. So I'm just going to share with you some thoughts today about how I see the world from a strategy, risk, and uncertainty perspective. So I'm gonna turn off my video. You're gonna get to ask questions at the end. I appreciate you joining us and listening. And I'm gonna pull up the PowerPoint slides and sort of get into this conversation, which is one of my favorite conversations. So Amber or Alessandro, can you just confirm that you can see the slides just fine?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, excellent. So this is my talk. There's my contact information if someone wants to follow up later, if we don't get to answer all your questions today. But I mean, at times the world seems kind of crazy, right? It just does. There's a lot going on in the world in the last month, in the last 6 months, in the last year. What I'm going to argue from an academic perspective and in the way I teach the class is we have always had volatility and uncertainty in the world. And you can see on this slide, which comes from some of my colleagues over at Cambridge, which is a great university. They have a center for risk, just like we have a center for risk at St. John's. But in some of their research, you can see on the left-hand side, they document just how often big swings in the stock market happens. And they also document on the right-hand side, because they're in the UK, how often big swings happen in the UK, the British stock market as well. And they put them in nice little tables at the bottom where you can see that, on average, on a regular basis, we have crashes of 10%. Really, every 16 years, we have a peak to trough kind of swing in the stock market. I'm hoping we don't have another one anytime soon, but those are things that just happen. So what we learn from looking at historical data is that there have always been swings in the stock market. We never have business figured out where we can predict it perfectly and plan it and everything is always smooth. There is always uncertainty in the market. Sometimes the uncertainty comes up because look on the right-hand side at the top, we have a lot of things happen sort of all at the same time. And Denise Garth has documented that we really entered a digital age from 2010 until now, and where we had AI, blockchain, autonomous vehicles, wearables, cloud, the iPhone. We had all these things kind of hit the world and businesses and organizations at one time. And so we entered this digital age. And that shows up in uncertainty and disruption. And you can see on the top left-hand side, you had Coca-Cola saying, we got to do something besides make Coca-Cola products. And on the bottom left, you saw Bill Ford of the Ford Motor Company say, we can't just sell more cars. We got to find a way to create some more revenue. Of course, now they're trying to sell more electric cars. And even in the middle, you had J. Crew, CEO, saying, I didn't understand how tech was going to change the world of retail. And then on the far right-hand side, you see the Wall Street analyst not far from where I'm sitting right now, warning companies, disruption is coming and you better be ready for that. And you better plan on disruption and uncertainty because it's coming your way. And then COVID hit, right? We're just now getting beyond COVID. And Alessandro's up there in Turin, where really some of the scariest stories were happening in the beginning. And then I'm in New York, where it was pretty scary here for a while as well. And then coming out of COVID, I saw news stories in the headlines I put up here. I'll start on the top right. It kind of changed the climate for a while because people weren't driving and people weren't flying, but the climate issue is not going away. And then on the left-hand side, I saw this one person say, well, I'm worried about world wars again. And people kind of laughed at that comment. And now you see what's going on today and you think, well, maybe that guy was right. But getting it back to what are the lessons, on the bottom left, you see people started to question how predictable or uncertain the world actually is. And so you had people starting to say that, we're entering not the age of disruption or the digital age, but we're entering an age of the unknown unknowns. And headlines in major magazines were starting to ask, what's next? What are we missing that's going to happen next? And what I'm showing you here is just a simple risk map. And what leaders of organizations recognize is they see the change and disruption, they're feeling the pressure, and they want to try and map it and say, well, look on the upper right-hand side, what really are the largest risks facing my organization? Everybody wants to figure out what those are. And here's what I know. I don't know what the largest risk is to each organization around the world. But what I do know is is that the largest risks are usually something around strategy. And you can see on the far right-hand side, this is an analysis that I teach my students to do in our graduate ERM program. You can see on the right-hand side, when companies get in really big trouble, what I call the booms, it's usually something around strategy. And what's interesting to me is not only is strategic risk the biggest risk, but it's usually something around setting strategy. So think about just the first couple minutes in the slides that I did. It's really hard to set strategy in uncertain times. And that's why we see these wild swings in value show up when you're trying to set the new strategy. Think of it this way, in that movie that I still love, The Lord of the Rings. There's that famous moment in the first movie where and I'm not an expert, I hope I say this correctly. If you're an expert, send me an email and tell me which part I got wrong. But you got the elves and you've got Gandalf, right? And you've got the dwarfs, and they're all around. They're having this big meeting, and they set the strategy. The strategy is destroy the ring. This ring is terrible. We got to destroy it. Like, okay, got it. And now they've got to align. So set strategy is one dimension of strategic risk. Alignment is the second dimension. So destroy the ring, set the strategy. What's the next dimension? You got to get everybody on board. And so the dwarfs say, you have my axe, and the elves say, you have my bow. And I can't remember exactly what Gandalf says, but he's on board as well. And then they've got to execute on the mission. So set the strategy, alignment of the organization, and then execute on the mission. The biggest risk are strategic risk. And as you can see on the right-hand side, again, they're usually related to setting strategy. Here's the good or the bad news, but why you should study this topic, in my opinion. In the upper right-hand corner, what that number means is, when I ask risk executives, do you think your leadership and your CEO are good at both setting strategy and at executing on the mission? And the answer is not very many. In fact, only 19% think they have a leader that's actually good at setting strategy and executing strategy. Let me give you two sort of practical examples. I'm an Apple addict. I buy everything that Apple produces: iPhones, iPads, Apple Watch. I'm doing this on a MacBook right now. I love their products. But Tim Cook is really kind of a executing strategy kind of guy. They haven't had a lot of new ideas since Steve Jobs passed away. Who's really good at setting strategy right now? Elon Musk, right? For the longest time, he couldn't make the car. He had trouble executing, but he's got this visionary dimension that in a lot of different organizations, whether you like him or don't like him, we can't deny that he's kind of good on the setting strategy and the dimension part. Why is that so important? Because most strategic plans fail, according to one European organization. And you can see the big reason is up there on the top right-hand side. Why? Because they underestimate the risk. And so we have an entire class on this, an entire degree in this particular program that I'm going to talk about in just a little bit. When I ask leaders, well, do you think you know what your strategic risks are? The answer is actually not very many. So very few are confident that they understand what their strategic risks are, and we try and help them improve. The good news or the bad news is they're getting a lot of pressure. There is an organization in the US, and most countries have a similar organization. In the US, it's called the NACD. You can see that in the top right-hand side. And what they do is, that stands for National Association of Corporate Directors. And what they do is they advise people that are on boards, nonprofit boards, public company boards. They advise them on what their job is as a board member and how to help the organization in managing risk and uncertainty. And look at the pressure they're putting on board members. They're telling board members in the top left-hand side, you need to question your legacy business model. Is that business model going to work in the future? You need to, on the lower left-hand side, you need to think about, are you vulnerable to some of these disruptions in the world? On the top, on the right-hand side, boards need to ask about what are the outside exogenous external risks and the trigger risk. What are the things that are going to cause everything when you're going to cross a threshold and you can't return, and the business or the organization is really in trouble? Getting back to that tipping points and that Malcolm Gladwell concept as well. So what I'm arguing so far today, not with Vin Diesel, but just Paul Walker by myself, is that the world is uncertain. That's opportunity. That's tremendous downside as well. And companies are feeling the pressure. They're trying to react. They're getting guidance from board consulting type organizations. And there's other things that they can do and things that you and I can do. This is from an old McKinsey study. Well, it's actually not that old. McKinsey says, look, when the world is more risky and uncertain, what do you need to do? Gather. We got to get together to talk about the uncertainty and the risk. We got to get the right people in the room, the people that understand strategy, the people that understand business, the people that understand risk. And we got to have a conversation, right? We got to avoid the people not knowing or not seeing or not hearing. We got to figure out what we need to do in these particular circumstances. And I would say you need to also get a better education, which is a little bit about what I'm going to talk about in a few slides as well. So when I say risk, though, I don't mean insurance, I don't mean accounting, I don't mean finance. I mean really all those things. Because risk in today's world is about probability. You can see that on the top left. It's about the downside. You can see also on the top left. It's about being agile. Does your organization have the ability to pivot and move in a new direction? Does your organization manage the portfolio? Are they thinking about how fast risks are moving? Are they thinking about utility and what they care about? Are they thinking about how big the risks are and how the risks are going to impact the organization? Are they thinking about being robust? How strong is your organization to global disruption, global supply chain, other things like that? And does your organization resiliency have the ability to bounce back? Here's the weird part to me, and I'm not a researcher in this area, but I can read other people's research. You might find it entertaining as well. Better than some of the stuff on Netflix, by the way. But there's research that shows you actually have a part of your brain that lights up when you make risky decisions. So there's risk in the world that has a lot of dimensions, and your brain reacts to it. When we put you in a risky situation, you can see the little yellow line there as a simulated example. Your brain actually lights up. So we see this risk and uncertainty. We sense it. Corporations are trying to get better. And it kind of leads to this degree that I'm teaching, one of many degrees at St. John's in our College of Business. But one degree is on enterprise risk management. It's one of the newest disciplines in the world of business. And just look on the left-hand side. I've done a web search every year, every other year on this particular topic. And you can see that this concept of enterprise risk management has just exploded from 8 million is all I could find on Google in 2011 to the last time I did this in 2022, 771 million hits on this topic. Why? I think you can see why is companies sense that things are out of control. They're looking for, is there a solution? I will tell you part of the answer is there is a solution. In some countries, we are actually mandating legally, your regulators are, whether it's Singapore or in the US or in Germany or in the UK or in Japan or China, they're actually mandating that you do enterprise risk management. It's really becoming kind of like a new core competence for leadership. And that's why I think our degree is doing well. Look at it compared to the traditional degrees. In 2015, there was a little bit of research on ERM versus marketing and accounting was a lot more. But you go down to today, and there's now a lot of research. If you go to Google Scholar, there's now a lot of research on ERM. In fact, the last time I checked, more than on the traditional areas in marketing and accounting. And not that long ago, there was an enterprise risk management paper that kind of won an award for the best paper in the last decade, because this is a subject that really the world needs right now, is how do we manage risk to a business, to an organization, to a family, even to a country, I would argue. I've written some articles that the USA needs a chief risk officer. I think that they really do. Is there a right way? You're looking at now kind of an answer. There is a right way. There are frameworks that are out there that help organizations figure out how to manage their risk. And almost every country has one. I had the privilege of helping the country of India write one just last year. So Japan has one. I think in Germany, they use the US one. But almost every country is thinking about the subject of enterprise risk management. Organizations in every country, for-profit and non-for-profit, are thinking. And the good news is, again, there's guidance out there to help you when you're trying to launch this. And some countries are writing their very own specific guidance that's relevant to them, which kind of leads to why we have this degree. And we have on the left-hand side, you can get an MBA with a concentration in enterprise risk management. You'll see me either online or in person. So each of these degrees are face-to-face or online. You can pick. We also have a master's degree in enterprise risk management, and we have a Center for Excellence in Enterprise Risk Management. It's kind of like an academic think tank. In fact, tomorrow I'm going to have somewhere between 90 and 100 of some of the top risk leaders in the world come to our Manhattan campus, and we're going to talk about AI as a risk, as a downside risk, and AI as an upside risk. So we've got I think some great speakers, some very prestigious AI experts from Microsoft and from IBM, who's obviously has Watson. And so the center helps us a lot. So we have a couple degrees, MBA and a MS in ERM. Amber's going to tell you more about some of our other degrees. This is sort of how I think about what is that famous dish I get when I go to Indian restaurants, the deconstructed chicken, right? I love that dish, by the way. This is like a deconstructed strategy approach. One of the ways that I teach the course is that you've got to decide on the upper right-hand side. In the US, we play baseball, right? Some of you don't do that, and some of you do. And it's the World Series time, and my team is in the World Series, so I'm excited this year, right? But there's some people, the former CEO Procter & Gamble, say, what it all starts off is, which field do you want to play in? So corporations and CEOs of for-profit or nonprofit have to make a decision about where do we want to win, where are we going to play. Then they've got to get the organization aligned. They've got to set up a system where they build a business model, they build value, they understand their capabilities. As they're on that journey, they think about surprises. They think about how strong they are. They think about their ability to bounce back. They think about, obviously, right spending and performance. They factor in, today's successful organizations factor in risk and disruption. They factor in the ability to adapt and change and pivot when the risk occurs. What I'm suggesting is that the topic that I'm just doing briefly with you today, it is now the core competence and even the right way to think about strategy going forward. In my particular class, we take that model that I just showed you and we think about it from a business model perspective. So we try to develop a deep knowledge of what is the business model. And if we understand that, we understand where the real risk is. It's really, there was a best-selling book 30 years ago. I only read the first 30 pages. I don't know if some of you do like I do, where you just read part of the book. But the amazing thing about that book was it was called The Purpose-Driven Life. I read online somewhere that guy sold 50 million copies of that book. That just shocks me. I need to write a book like that, right? So, but the reason that book was so important is people want to focus on what's important. It's the same thing with the business model. Who are you as a nonprofit or a regular company? Do you really understand who you are? And the way that I approach it is, if you can figure that out, then you really have gotten to the heart and soul of the organization. This is a lesson that a CEO taught me many years ago, is, Professor, you got to understand the heart and soul of the organization. You got to understand on the left-hand side, the noise and disruption in your world. What is your business model? What is the value you bring? What are your capabilities? And it's only then that you know the real risk, because you really understand the heart and soul of the organization. So I try to teach that approach, because I think it's really what leadership thinks about and how they think about how to be successful as well. I also teach that if you recognize the uncertainty in the world, you got to figure out, well, what do you do about it? So you can see at the top, can you be a shaper? Can you drive change your way? Some companies can, and they need to understand if they have that ability. Or Do you need to be an adapter? Do you need to just defend the position that you have? And that's going to be your strategic approach. It's incredibly important to think and understand that while you're setting strategy. And you can see I cite this article. That's a great article to read if you're bored later and want to read something very, very fascinating. Another one of my favorite books that we use in my class is not just can you shape or adapt, but can you create a blue ocean? You can see, even as of a couple of years ago, this one sold 3.5 million copies. It's probably up to 5 or 6 million copies by now. Let me just say a quick aside on this book. CEOs read this book. If you don't hear anything today, I want to say read what CEOs read. And this is the type of book that they read. Why do they read this type of book? Okay, because this book is about, look on the bottom, finding industries that don't exist, finding unknown market space, new products, new ideas, new dimensions that no one's considering, where the rules are not set. Every leader of an organization wants to find that gold nugget or the golden egg of what's the next great industry. So this is what CEOs read. This is a great book to read. And the lesson from the book is, you can see launches with red, launches with blue. So this is kind of the blue. I don't have the color on there. You can see over here, profit. Where is most of the profit or the money made? It's in the blue ocean. So people love this concept, and we cover that book in class because it's absolutely critical to understand creating new businesses. We spend some time on, I have one entire class on this, on strategic risk. And in that class, we not only go over blue oceans, but do you understand your value proposition? So critical to understand why you exist as an organization, nonprofit or for-profit, and what is the value that you bring. One of my favorite exercises in class is we learn to create new business models. This is an actual picture on the right-hand side where the students and I get together and sort of war game. And it's a lot of fun. We create new business models and then we argue about them and we try to defend them. So I have a great time doing that. And I want to go back to the risk and uncertainty, though, because I've been too optimistic for a couple slides. You've got to pay attention, though, to what's happening. I had this quote from a board member who reminded me, the risk that kills most companies is things change. You're asleep. You don't see it. You're not challenging. You're not bringing in objective information. And I have this survey that I've done as part of our think tank where we say, look, 90-something% of executives say anticipating, interpreting, and reacting to what the noise in the market is critical to your future success. So we spent a lot of time on what are emerging risks, what are meteoric risk, and how, that's why I'm doing this session tomorrow on AI, Gen AI, as a risk and a disruption. Let me just give you an example, because I've joked about Netflix and Paul Walker, Fast and Furious and stuff like that. But you can see right here in the middle that this is where people, this is the movie. This is me trying to capture from a book. I took this from this book on value proposition. This is them trying to capture, well, what's the business model of going to the movie? Well, it's about the immersive storytelling experience. Okay, well, that's great, but what is the context and disruption? And you can see a lot of things, right? People are watching on their phones. We're watching on our iPads. We're watching on TikTok instead of movies. We've got bandwidth issues from country to country. We've got maybe driverless cars. Maybe post-pandemic, we're tired of watching movies. Maybe we're not going to watch as much as we used to. We've got other entertainment alternatives. We've got new competition. There used to be a big difference in quality between Hollywood and Netflix and Amazon, and now that's becoming different. And so what we try and teach is, even when you have a simple business model, you have to constantly pay attention to what's happening in your context and your environment. This is an actual analysis that my students did where we focus in the class on, do you understand your product portfolio and where are they? Because there's risk if you've got too many in one phase versus not having them in the other phase. We like to push the question on the left-hand side and on the bottom. Are you developing any business models that will transform your company? That's what we want to try and do. We want to create new blue oceans and actually transform the company. And what I like to cover in my strategic risk class is you need to develop your skill set as a future business person or organizational leader. And here I've got a tool set. We cover a lot of these tools in our master's and MBA in enterprise risk management so that you can develop your tool set and be ready to help organizations when you graduate. So I kind of hinted at this earlier, and I just want you to look at it for just a moment, because, honestly, I can't predict the future. So I kind of feel like we're at that moment in time where on the left-hand side, some people today would say, no, the world is unpredictable. I have no idea what's going to happen next. And yet tomorrow, I've got a couple of the world's greatest AI people coming in here, and they're saying, look, hey, with AI, Gen AI, machine learning, big data, everything is predictable. So it's kind of like we've got these two things going on. We couldn't have seen that coming or that event about to happen. And then other people say we should have seen that about to happen and we should have been prepared for it. And those are debates, above my pay grade. But it seems that's kind of the state we're in on the world. I think maybe the answer is we're in the middle. And this is why we've got to get the right education, I would argue, from the right university and get better at it. Just kind of look on the left. I've sort of summarized. There are a lot of best-selling books out there. I've talked about one or two of them, and I've listed them on the left-hand side. There are a lot of theories about how you could be the next Elon Musk or the next Steve Jobs. Okay, that's great. I love all those stories. They're great to read. There are also a lot of theories of failure. Don't run out of cash. Peter Drucker's work on the theory of a business is brilliant stuff. Clayton Christensen's work on the innovator's dilemma and how you miss the disruption and the innovation that's coming your way and it ends up taking you out. So a lot of theories of success, a lot of theories of failure. But I think in today's world, one of the biggest theories of failure is failing to identify and manage your risk, because it is a volatile and uncertain world. And with that, I'm going to stop. And I think so I'm going to turn it back over to Alessandra, turn my camera on so you can see that I don't exactly look like the Fast and Furious version. And I have way more hair than Vin Diesel, by the way. So I'm going to stop there. And Alessandra, I'll let you take over for now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Professor Walker. Hello again, everyone. So I think that now we can leave the floor to Amber Steiger for a presentation of the courses and the life at St. John's University. So we're gonna take a few minutes for that. And then I wanted to remind everyone that you still have time to ask questions to both Professor Walker and both Emmy for any questions you might have in mind. So Emmy, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much. I'm just very quickly going to speak about some of the degrees at St. John's University, particularly within the business school. I'm also going to take a page from Dr. Walker's book and turn off my camera since we were having some technical issues before. I did see that there are a lot of questions for Dr. Walker in the chat, though, so I'm going to very quickly just go over these very quick slides, and then if anybody has any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them during the Q&A. So within St. John's University, our business school is called the Tobin College of Business. We also have the Greenberg School of Risk Management, Actuarial Science, which the enterprise risk management is part of. We have very small class sizes and over now 194,000 alumni, many of which are in the New York City area. A lot of rankings, including top 38 master's programs for online, top 18 MBA programs, and we're one of 6 universities in New York State to be doubly accredited in both business and accounting by AACSB, which is the highest accreditation in the United States. Within GSRM, which is the School of Risk Management that I alluded to before, we are recognized as a global leader in insurance education, and we are a global leader in actuarial science education by the Society of Actuaries. You can see some of our designations at the bottom there. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will also mention, that we have the Center of Excellence for Enterprise Risk Management, which Dr. Walker talked about as well. As we mentioned, we do have two different campuses, one in Queens, which is a 105-acre campus, your traditional campus lifestyle, and then one in Manhattan. The ERM program in the School of Risk Management is based on the Manhattan campus, but our degrees are very flexible. So you can take classes in Queens, you can take classes in Manhattan, you can take classes online, and a combination of all of the three. In terms of our application, we have a very quick application form that takes about 5 minutes to fill out online. We will also waive the application fee for anybody who attended today's webinar. We require 1 letter of recommendation, the resume, an essay, and transcripts from all institutions that you've attended. If you do have credits from outside of the United States, we also require a foreign credit evaluation by a NACES member. And for some students, we do require the TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo, or Pearson exam for your English language. This is a list of all of our MBA concentrations. We have 17 different concentrations, including enterprise risk management and risk management. The MBA is 36 credits, which is 12 classes. Most full-time students complete the degree in either 3 or 4 semesters. We also have the STEM MBA, which is a 45 credit program where you do the MBA core and you pick 2 of the 6 concentrations shown on the screen. Most students who take this degree graduate in 4 or 5 semesters. We also have 10 Master of Science degrees, including the ERM degree that Dr. Walker talked about, and I am a proud alumni of that degree as well. Within the School of Risk Management, we also have the Risk Management and Risk Analytics and the Actuarial Science degree. Those programs offer the most scholarship within the Tobin College of Business, so you can receive up to full tuition for those 3 degrees. But for the other MS programs, we also have scholarship awards based on merit, meaning your GPA. We have work experience awards and scholarships for St. John's undergraduate alumni. For those who may not be ready to jump into an MS or an MBA, we also offer 7 advanced certificate programs. My apologies, Dr. Walker, but I did forget to add the Enterprise Risk Management Advanced Certificate, which is also an option onto this slide. Finally, we do also have a great career development office. So when you enroll at St. John's, you meet with your career advisor who helps you with resume building, interview prep, shadow days with people in the industry. We also host 2 huge career and internship fairs each semester on both of the campuses, as well as have individual recruitment events pretty much at least once a week on either of the campuses from different companies. We also offer global destination courses. And then in terms of financial support, you can also apply for a graduate assistantship in addition to the academic scholarship, which is a full tuition award plus a small stipend that is for highly competitive candidates to work with either professors on campus or administrative offices like myself. There's departmental scholarships, like I mentioned, which are within GSRM that range anywhere from $5,000 to full tuition. We have the Promise Scholarship, which is for students who enroll in the MS in Actuarial Science. That is a $40,000 scholarship for students coming into the program who have both Exam P from the SOA CAS exams and another exam, so you have to have 2 under your belt when you start. And then the Eladi Fellowship, which is for the MS ERM, for the MS in Risk Management, which is a full tuition award as well. That's it for me. I promised I would keep it short, so I'm going to turn it back to Alessandra, and any questions that you have, please add in the chat, and I'm happy to answer and get more specific.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Amber, for your presentation. So I see here that we already have some questions, both for Professor Walker and both for Amber. So I would say, let's start with the first one, if you're ready. So here, the first one for Professor Walker. The question is, hi, how does data and technology help you in conducting strategies?
Well, you need data to be able to understand if your strategy is going to work or not, right? At some point, you could have a vision, but you've got to have the numbers and the analysis to know if you're on the right path. So you absolutely have to have data. There's no question that it's a key part of the equation.
Okay, thank you, Professor. So let's move to the next one, which is, what are the key challenges you face in conducting strategy risk analysis for organizations? Thank you.
Oh, the key challenges. Well, that's a good one. So I had the one slide on tools. You got to figure out which dimension of strategy you want to focus on. So do you want to apply some tools to setting strategy? There's a set of tools that will help you focus on whether you have the right strategy or not. There's a set of tools that will help you focus on whether you've built the right business model and have it aligned or not. And then there's a set of tools that will help you understand whether you're executing or not. there's really a fourth set of tools that will help you understand your context and the environment and the uncertainty and disruption in the world. So you apply the tools to the right area. What I have done and I enjoy doing is I've done what we call Black Swan workshops, where we get the C-suite, we get the top 20 executives, and we spend a day, sometimes 2 days, trying to explore, okay, here's our strategy, but what are we missing? What are the unknowns out there that we're not thinking about? Those are fun workshops where we really beat up the concept and figure out what we're missing. And we always find that we're missing something, by the way.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Professor, for your answer. We have another one here for Professor Walker, which is, can you give us an example of industries that have successfully implemented a risk management strategy?
Industries? Well, yeah. So let me say it this way, because it's not really industry specific. The only industries that are industry specific in almost all parts of the world are banking and insurance. Okay, why? Because the answer is about risk. In every country, if you and I are the leaders of the country, we worry about banking and insurance being there and being run properly, because every country needs hopefully a good banking system and a good insurance system. So almost every country will have additional regulators and rules. So really industry, yeah, banking and insurance. But in the US and in Germany or in Japan and all these other countries, when you get in the regular industries, whether it's consumer products or technology, it's not an industry, it's that there's pressure to build an enterprise risk management process. Sometimes the pressure is laws and regulations. Sometimes the pressure from external stakeholders asking you to get better at managing your risk. Sometimes it's just CEOs and board members. Remember the slide I had on pressure on boards? Boards going back to the CEO and saying, we need to really think about some of this disruption and we need to factor it into our planning. So it's not an industry, it's really companies just reacting to the uncertainty. I hope I answered that question the way that they wanted.
Perfect. Thank you, Professor. I have another question. I don't know who might answer between the two of you, so I'm just going to read it. Yes. Here is the question. It is, you mentioned a risk management center. Can you get an internship there?
We don't have an, I need to raise some money for that one. I don't have an internship for the ERM Center, but we have a lot of them in our College of Business and in my department, the Greenberg, the GSRM, the Greenberg School of Risk Management that Amber talked about. We have a lot of internships. We have our own career placement. We have a lot of scholarship money. So yes, there are internships that you go through our career placement, but you can also work with Amber or do some other things at the university as well. Or you can get we have some full ride scholarships where people don't pay anything, right? That's a really good deal.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Professor. Here we have the next question. It says, to enroll in a risk management degree, do you need to present any specific documents? Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll jump in. I'll take that one. That would be the application requirement. So you need to submit the online application. I can put the link to that in the chat. You also need to submit one letter of recommendation from a professional or academic source, your resume, a statement of goals, which only needs to be about a page explaining why you're interested in the degree and what you're hoping to get out of it. And then we'll need your transcripts from all secondary institutions attended. If you did attend a school outside of the United States, then we will need a foreign credit evaluation. We can send you a list of the members that we accept and the costs for that evaluation. And then you may also need an English exam, but we'll let you know if that's required. We do not require the GMAT or GRE.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Amber. So to move to the next question, it says, do you offer a master's degree in business and administration?
So we have the MBA, which is a master's in business administration. ERM and risk management are both concentrations within those degrees, but we have 17 different concentrations you can pick from. And I'll add the link to our MBA page you can learn more to in the chat as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Amber. So everyone take a look at the chat so you can find all of the links that Amber is posting right now. So to move to the next question, we have a question from Bogdan that says, do you offer scholarship to international students?
Absolutely. So we have a few different scholarships. The Alati Fellowship is a full tuition scholarship that, or fellowship, excuse me, that students within the MS in Enterprise Risk Management and the MS in Risk Management and Risk Analytics can apply for. That does require a separate application, but we do consider all accepted students to the GSRM for scholarships ranging from $5,000 to full tuition. That is based on GPA and your academic performance. And then for students accepted into other programs outside of GSRM, specifically within the MSs, we do have merit awards, which are based on GPA. We have work experience awards, which are not based on GPA. And then we also have awards for St. John's alumni.
Okay, thank you, Amber. So related to that one, we have another question that asks specifically, do you need a specific GPA to get a scholarship?
So it would depend on which scholarship you're referring to. The merit awards and the GSRM awards, which students automatically qualify for, you get notification of those scholarships in your acceptance letter, and you don't need to do any separate application process for those. The Alati Fellowship, as well as the graduate assistantships and the Zurich Fellowships, those do require a separate application. But I'll also put in the chat the link to our graduate scholarship page, because that lists all the specifics for all of our scholarships.
Okay, perfect. So we still have a few questions here, so I'm going to read the next one. And the question is, do I need to get a visa before enrolling, or I can do it later?
That's a great question. So that depends on which format you take the degree in. If you are an online student, then you don't ever need to get a visa because you don't need to step foot on the St. John's campus. If you're looking to enroll on campus, then you will need to get a visa before you come to the United States. We actually have a separate office called the International Student Services Office that will walk you through the entire process to obtain your visa. So at the time that you submit the application, you get an email from me and my team to walk you through the admission and the application process and what you need to get an admissions decision. And then you also get an email from ISSO, which will walk you through everything that you need to do in order to get your student visa.
Okay, perfect. And we still have another question left for Amber that says, do you offer housing?
Yes, so we do have residence halls on the Queens campus. There are some specifically within the confines of the campus that you can live on, or we also have apartments, which a lot of our graduate students like, that are about a 5-minute walk from campus. We don't have housing at the Manhattan campus, but you're able to easily get from the Queens area to the Manhattan campus by public transportation.
Perfect. Okay, thank you, Amber. So I'd like to remind everyone that all of the useful links can be found in the chat. And I see here that we still have some questions for Professor Walker. So I'm gonna, okay, we have a new one that just arrived. So I'm gonna read the first one, which says, hi, what are the specific risks faced by a lean manufacturing company? And also I'm going to add it to the next one, which is correlated, that says, how are risks monitored in a lean manufacturing company?
Well, that person probably works in a lean manufacturing company, but it comes down to the business model. There are some traditional risks, maybe that everybody faces, but just go back to the middle of the presentation. What drives the value in that manufacturing organization? What makes that organization successful? What is their business model? Who are their key customers, and why are those key customers there? Until you start to uncover and peel back and really understand the organization, then we're just kind of throwing things out there that are generic. The problem with the sky is falling or zombie invasion risk that we could say apply to, I'm making that up, of course, that we apply to everybody, is those are almost impossible to manage. I can't manage a zombie invasion. Well, maybe I can. Maybe something online tells me how to do that. So you want to find the risks that really are about you and your organization. And so I don't know the answer generally without spending some time with that company. but I know the leaders want to know the answer. I mean, why would they not want to know the answer? They do, because they want to be successful.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Professor, for your answer. We still have another question here in the chat from Mohammed that asks, do you offer AML or CFT risk assessment for financial institutions?
No, I assume they mean asset money laundering. We do not do that type of certification. No, that's outside the what higher education does. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we're done with the questions right now. So I want to thank again Professor Paul Walker for being with us today, and also Amber Steiger for being with us today. And I want to remind everyone that if you're interested in receiving a certificate of attendance by Docsity, you can do so by clicking on the link that was sent here on the chat. So before we say goodbye, I would like to ask Dr. Walker and Amber if they would like to lead the participants with a message.
Just wanted to remind you that by attending today that you do receive the application fee waiver. So I'll also put my email in the chat. If anybody has any questions about the presentation today, about St. John's in general, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Sure. And I would just add, so Alessandra, thank you for hosting us. But I would just add, every country, every organization, what we're talking about today in learning and getting a degree in this particular area that I teach, it applies to every country and it applies to every type of organization. So it's a good skill set. I've got one of my favorite students who started off at JP Morgan after he got the degree, and now he's working at Oracle. So he was doing risk management at one of the biggest banks in the world, and now he's doing it one of the biggest tech companies in the world. It's the same skill set. So it doesn't limit you to a lean manufacturing company, by the way. You can move around with the skill set.
Okay, perfect. So thanks again to Dr. Walker and to Amber, and thanks everyone for joining us and also for your questions. So I would say bye everyone. Thanks. And have a nice day. See you again at the next webinar organized by Docsity in partnership with St. John's University.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.